We have lots to discuss in today's video, including the latest trade talk around the NHL with some updates on Vancouver around Pettersson and Miller. Could we see Utah maybe be a player in the sweepstakes for one of these two-star centermen? And is JT Miller kind of what we would refer to as checked out, if you will? His latest talk to the media this morning kind of gave a lot of short answers and really gave a lot of people the vibe that maybe he's ready to move on, but we'll discuss what that was all about and what we think might be happening. Plus, number 2 overall pick from a few drafts back, Simon Nemec of New Jersey. It sounds disgruntled and maybe looking for a new scenery, fresh start. Could the Devils trade him to a team like the Montreal Canadiens? There's certainly been lots of speculation. He's been linked there before. We'll discuss that scenario. Plus, big news with the waiver wire. Jarry was on waivers. We'll find out what's happening with him. Lots of injury updates, including former Leaf captain John Tavares, who's going to be out for a while as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. First, let's start with updates from the NHL waiver wire. We had lots of activity here in the past couple of days. We had some big names, including goaltender Jarry on waivers with the Pittsburgh Penguins yesterday. Of course, as we discussed, I didn't really think he'd get claimed, mainly due to his contract with over $5 million with 3 years remaining, and that's exactly what happened. He cleared waivers. Nobody picked him up, so Jarry has been reassigned to the American Hockey League affiliate for the Penguins. Now, there was also Ludwig from Colorado was also on waivers. He also cleared, and the Avalanche could reassign him as well. But when it comes to Jarry, it's hard to say exactly what the future holds. I think based on the comments from Kyle Dubas, the GM of the Penguins, he said that at some point, if Jarry goes down and finds his game and has a good stretch of solid play, that maybe he comes back up. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they don't explore a buyout in the summer unless they can find it. Of course, a trade's always preferable because then you can move the whole contract. Even if they have to retain some money, that might be challenging. But if he has a good run in the AHL, maybe that doesn't happen and maybe they're able to move him. But otherwise, I do wonder if this is the end of Jarry in Pittsburgh, but a lot of it's going to depend on how the other goalies do. If Nedeljkovic and Joel Blomqvist, who was recalled today, if they don't do any better and the team continues to struggle, then they're going to realize that, yes, Jarry might be part of the problem, but he's far from the only part of the problem. Maybe he gets another look, but if he doesn't play well in the AHL, then he's probably not. So it's really going to boil down to how all that goes. We'll have to see. It's going to be an interesting scenario to follow here. The Penguins are kind of still in the mix in the wild card race. I think over the next probably 1 to 2 weeks, it wouldn't be shocking if we start to see a couple of those teams that are really, log jammed together start to fall out of the race a little bit, and it starts to become a little bit more of a smaller group vying for those last couple of spots. And the Bruins, in my opinion, are going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch. They have a lower win percentage than both Columbus and Ottawa. So technically, they're still in a playoff spot by points, but not by point percentage. And as they get caught up in games played, as the other teams do to the Bruins, it wouldn't be a complete shocker if the Bruins end up dipping out and then have to try to fight their way back in. So that's going to be an interesting race nonetheless. Now, when it comes to some injury updates and some roster moves, one of the more interesting injuries that we saw happen in practice yesterday for the Maple Leafs, former captain and current alternate captain John Tavares was injured. As I mentioned yesterday, there was a video footage of Leafs practice showing him going down during a drill. It looked to me, it was kind of a far away, but it looked like he was going into the corner against Tanev, and their skates, I think they started to kind of go the opposite ways, but their skates kind of clicked, and he went down and was in a heap of pain. Did get up on his own and get off, but we knew he was going to be out. They've announced him out as week to week. So it sounds like they kind of made, the commentary sounds like they avoided real serious injury, but week to week generally is going to be generally at least 2, but it's hard to say. But the belief is, from what reporters are saying, that 2 weeks right now is kind of the estimate. But again, some of these injuries are kind of tough to say. But of course, the Leafs, they pulled off a big win against their old coach, Sheldon Keefe, and the Devils tonight in overtime. But at the end of the day, they've had a little bit of a bad stretch here lately. So clearly losing Tavares isn't going to make things any easier. They also activated Jake McCabe today, so he was back. They recalled Fraser Minton to take roster spot of Tavares here as well. Now, the Ottawa Senators had a different lineup tonight. They did battle with the Washington Capitals. They ended up going to overtime with a 0-0 score. Both Levi Marilainen and Logan Thompson didn't allow any goals during regulation. Unfortunately for Marilainen, he falls short getting credit for the shutout because he did give up the winning goal on a rolling puck that Ovechkin got off in overtime for a 1-0 win. Obviously, that's back-to-back shutouts for Logan Thompson, and that's for Marilainen. That for regulation, he's played 4 straight games for the Sens, and that's he's got 2 shutouts, and theoretically, a shutout at least through regulation. So that's only 3 goals in 4 games that he's given up. And like I said, 3 out of 4, no goals in regulation, which is quite something for the 21-year-old netminder who's filling in for Linus Ullmark while we wait for his injury. But last game for Ottawa, Thomas Chabot got a puck to the face, suffered a lot of damage. So he was out tonight. He was at practice this morning with a full bubble, but not good enough to play. Still got a lot of swelling and pain going on his face, so he didn't play. They called up Donovan Sabrango, who had to make his NHL debut. He's a local kid, 23 years old. Mom was there. It's quite a good story. He's not super old at 23, but certainly somebody, when he was in the Red Wings organization, probably was starting to look and think like he wasn't going to make it. Gets traded to Ottawa. He was one of the pieces, kind of a forgotten piece, if you will, in the Alex DeBrincat trade, and he's played very, very well for them in the minors and really improved things and got the call because they needed a left shot D, and he played a good game, didn't make any mistakes, kept it simple, so it was good on him. The Ottawa Senators also had to make room for that and get back Michael Amadio back into the lineup, also sent Zach McEwen back down to the AHL, so we'll see. He could be back depending on other movement here, but David Perron also appears to be very close to returning. Might be able to play this weekend, and Ottawa's next game is a back-to-back at home and away. They play Boston and then follow that up with a road trip to New Jersey. So we'll see where that goes. And the Minnesota Wild officially moved Kirill Kaprizov to LTIR today. Now, Wild fans don't need to panic thinking he's going to be out super long. That just gives them a little bit more flexibility in the short term. The Kaprizov injury is actually backdated to last month when he was first injured. So he's actually eligible to return January the 18th. So that's only in a couple days from now. So he does not have to be on LTIR very long. But in the interim, they called up Liam Ogren and Brendan Gaunce, and they needed to be able to do that to have the flexibility to make those moves. The Dallas Stars today also play Montreal tonight at home, and they're without Rupe Hintz. Rupe Hintz is out, I believe, with some sort of illness, but I'm not quite sure of the exact details. The Seattle Kraken also in action tonight without Brandon Tanev, who's missing the game due to illness as well. Now, the Dallas Stars, speaking of them, they NHL had their quarter century teams announced here today. Team 1 for the Dallas Stars for the quarter century group includes current captain Jamie Benn, longtime former captain Mike Modano, and Yuri Lettinen, who had a heck of a career, one of the better two-way forwards during his era. On the back end, we've got current defenseman Miro Heiskanen and Sergei Zubov, followed by Marty Turco between the pipes, one of the better puck-handling goalies of his era, of course, as well. The second team, a little bit of a surprise here. They've got former captain Brendan Morrow, Joe Pavelski, and Tyler Seguin. I mean, Pavelski was great, but he didn't play there super long. A little surprised. Not that, I guess, like I said, he did very well when he was there. It just wasn't a long-time player. On the back end, they had John Klingberg and Esa Lindell and goalie Ed Belfour. I'm a little surprised they gave the nod to Belfour over Bishop. I thought Ben Bishop might get the nod there. He was a great goalie for them, and we'll see. But obviously Belfour was good too. But anyway, we'll see what the other teams have to say. But there's always at least one or two little surprises in these as they get announced. Sasha Barkov, Florida Panthers captain, honored in his home country of Finland with being named Finland's Athlete of the Year. Surprisingly, this is the first time in the history of that award that it was actually given to a hockey player. Given that Finland is such a hockey-rich and hockey-crazy country, it's kind of crazy to think that none of their other hockey players have ever won. So, of course, won a Stanley Cup last year, which obviously played a big role in the decision. So, certainly, congrats to Barkov on that great honor. Of course, we had heard and talked about yesterday about the situation with Evgeny Malkin of the Penguins. His home was burglarized, and there was reports today that all 3 of his Stanley Cup rings were missing as part of that. But according to new reports that came out tonight, that the Stanley Cup rings have been found. They were found, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they were found in his residence. So maybe they weren't stolen. Maybe they just were misplaced, and originally when they were first investigating, couldn't find them, so thought they were gone. But I'm not sure what the case is with that. But if you've heard the story that his cup rings are gone, that indeed has been updated, that they've been found. Now on to the rumor mill section. I want to talk about the Canucks, and I want to talk about Nemec in New Jersey. So in Vancouver, I know we've talked about Miller and Pettersson at length, but there is some new information here. One, Frank Saravalli, of course, Daily Faceoff insider, had some comments here in the last day or so talking about this Pettersson-Miller situation. If the Vancouver Canucks are going to make a move, and right now, all the intel says that they've taken calls on both players, they're open to moving one or maybe even both of them. I would say probably not both, but they're open to either one. The most likely scenario for me is that they both stay, just because trading either of them is going to be very complicated. If they do make a trade, I think it's probably going to be easier in the offseason, but again, that is just my personal opinion. However, if this is getting as toxic as it might look from the outside, then maybe it's better they do something sooner than later. However, Saravalli wonders if Utah might be one of the many teams that could be very well in the mix here. He says that obviously with the fact that they're not in a playoff spot, and you have to wonder how management's feeling, but we know they have the green light from ownership to spend. There's no problem there. So with that all in mind, and they're still within striking distance to get into the playoffs, but right now they're on the outside looking in. Saravalli was speculating that we wonder if we could see GM Bill Armstrong make a move, a bold move at that, to really help this team be stronger, especially that the fact that over the next little bit here, they should start to finally get healthy. They've been missing some key members of their blue line all season, and they're finally starting to get healthy. They just got Marino. There's other help on the way here. So, with that in mind, would it make sense for them to make a big deal and try to bring in, a top line center like Miller or Pettersson? Obviously, they have a lot of young players. They have draft capital. They're certainly in a good, stable position ownership-wise and cap-wise. They could probably take on a contract here of even more significance. So they're well-positioned to make the move. We know that owner Ryan Smith and his group there were quite big on, especially what we saw in the summer, bringing in name brand talent, names that are, big around the NHL. They want to sell tickets. They want to make a big splash. They want to be competitive and be, into the playoffs as soon as possible. So, it kind of makes sense that they might try something like this, but obviously it's going to be tough to do. Any team is going to have tough to do here, but that's the latest there, is that Utah could be in the mix according to Saravalli. But, Ryan Johnson, who's the producer for the Donnie and Daly show, he shared a clip from JT Miller on his X account that I was watching earlier, of JT Miller's morning media availability. And his comments were, and I guess depending on what other sports you follow, he said it felt like Jimmy Butler vibes. So, obviously, depending on what other, like I said, if you follow basketball, you would know what that means. Essentially, kind of getting the feeling that the player might be checked out and would like to move on. And the answers that he gave were so short and just to the point. He looked annoyed the entire time, like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be talking to you. Short one-word answers. He answered one question a little bit better because it was more of a question about their play, because he was asked about playing the Kings. Like, how do you, they're just kind of describing their team. How do you have success against them? And he actually gave a good answer. Like, you got to get on the inside. You got to play a gritty game and a dirty game, and, went on to describe what you got to do. Otherwise, like, they was asked more about his, personal production, about his personal health and all that kind of stuff. And it was very, very, very short and curt. So, does JT Miller getting annoyed to the point that he wants? We don't really have any report to confirm that. I'm just saying, based on his demeanor and his answers today to the media, it sure gave a lot of people those kind of vibes. So we'll have to see where that goes and what it means. Now, with Nemec in New Jersey, like I said, the former number 2 overall pick, not long ago, of course, right behind Juraj Slafkovsky. Nemec was by many viewed upon being the top defenseman in the draft that year. Right shot, offensive instincts, but expected to be good at both ends of the ice. And he projected by many scouts to be, at the very least, a top 4, but a lot of people thought he would be a top pair right shot D. That is hard to find. You have to draft those guys. A lot of people thought the Devils made the right move by taking him, but he's really yet to get a significant opportunity with the Devils, for an extended time. He spent a lot of time at the NHL level, but not in the lineup. So Nemec conducted an interview, of course, with a European outlet, and of course the quotes just really give us the vibe that he's not happy and would maybe welcome a trade. So obviously, with regards to how things are going in New Jersey, so here's some of the quotes. He says, I've gotten through the toughest part of my career. It's over now, and I'm playing hockey again. So I think that was referring to, being in the NHL, but being healthy scratched a lot and not getting opportunity to play. Obviously going to the minors, he's gotten more of an opportunity that way, but not where he wants to play. He said in regards to, if there's any concerns that he's not ready in the NHL, says that it feels like the NHL games were easier compared to the AHL, that it's a different kind of league with the grinding and, different kind of talent you face in the AHL, that the NHL is more his speed. He says he feels like he's been proven himself multiple times that he belongs in the NHL. Just have to wait for another chance. He says it's still too early to request a trade, but if the situation continues, it's going to have to be addressed. So he's not saying trade me right now, but he is saying if I don't get more of an opportunity in the short term, it very well could change, and it could change in a hurry here. Another quote, which I didn't write down, but I know basically he's something along the lines that, not too many second overall picks have had to go to the American Hockey League for 3 years. And I think he's kind of fed up with that. Now, the other thing here that has happened lately that's made things even more complicated for him is the fact that they traded for Jonathan Kovacevic from Montreal in the offseason. Now, that raised some eyebrows as well. Kovacevic, of course, when he was picked up by Montreal, he was a waiver claim out of Winnipeg. Didn't get a lot of opportunity in Winnipeg, goes to Montreal, and actually had a pretty good run there. They traded him because they've got a lot of young D they're trying to make room for. Goes to New Jersey, and, you've got... Now, the thing is, through in New Jersey, they brought in Brett Pesce as a free agent signing, a long-term deal, right? You've got Dougie Hamilton there on the right side, long-term deal, okay? And then you've got, besides Kovacevic, you've also got Seamus Casey, you got Nemec, you got a lot of right-side D. And now they're talking about extending Kovacevic. GM Tom Fitzgerald has made public quotes to the media saying that he absolutely is interested in extending Kovacevic. They've been very impressed with his play. So how is Casey and Nemec supposed to get into the lineup when you've got Pesce long-term, Hamilton long-term, and if you extend Kovacevic, even if it's not super long, even if you give him 2-3 years, when are your young D going to get into the lineup on a more consistent basis? Not, some guys can play their weak side. Not everybody can. So for Nemec, looking for more opportunity, and he sees, okay, I'm competing with some of these guys, and the guys I'm competing with, they're rumored to want to sign them. So where's my opportunity going to be? So that's why it's expected that even though he hasn't requested a trade yet, that it's probably going to be coming soon if they do sign Kovacevic, which apparently they're in the process of negotiating right now. Now, previously, there was link of Nemec to Montreal, given the fact that, they were rumored to be looking into him before because there was some talk in the offseason that maybe he would be available after they signed Brett Pesce. Well, at this point, Nemec, I would say, by many, feel like he's a stronger up-and-coming D prospect than most of what they have on the right side. If you take a look at Reinbacher and Mailloux, those guys are players that they have high hopes for. But I think most people would agree that long-term, it looks like Nemec would still right now, as of today, project to be the stronger D. So, there's no doubt that Ken Hughes likes to make big splash. He likes to make a big splash around the draft. He likes to do it with younger players. I don't know if and when a Nemec trade is going to happen, but to be honest, if they extend Kovacevic, I just don't see where the opportunity for this kid is going to come from. So, what would Montreal have to give up? It's difficult to say. Obviously, they're going to want something of value. Maybe they take back another prospect D that's maybe a little further away. Maybe they get a fairly high pick. I don't know. But, they obviously have, guys like Hudson and Gooley getting more ice time right now. Jack Eye's usually hovering around that third pair. You've still got, like I said, Mailloux. You've got Reinbacher on the way. So in some ways, if you're really confident in what you have coming, maybe you don't bother. But if you think that he's an upgrade and he's better, would you do that? Would you offer Reinbacher? Would they trade recently drafted, highly picked, top right-handed D? I don't know. Or what else? What would New Jersey want? That's the question. It's really hard to say. So either way, at the end of the day, the biggest part of this is that Nemec is not happy. Hasn't requested a trade, but it sure sounds like it might be close. Very disgruntled, and I wonder if, it may not be Montreal, but that's where he was linked before. That's why we're talking about Montreal and the opportunity there. But there could be lots of other teams that might really benefit from this kid. So let me know what you think down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.